Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together. Kane University, where Cougars climb higher. The New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Wells Fargo. PSC&G, powering progress. Johnson & Johnson. Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey. New Jersey Sharing Network. And by New Jersey's Clean Energy Program, lighting the way to a clean energy future. Promotional support provided by NJ.com, keeping communities informed and connected. And by ROINJ, informing and connecting businesses in New Jersey.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The way we change presidents in this country is by voting.
A quartet is already a John. It's just the new John.
January 6th was not some sort of violent, crazy outlier.
I don't care how good you are or how good you think you are, there is always something to learn.
I mean, what other country sends comedians over to embedded military to make them feel better?
People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
It's not all about memorizing and getting information. It's what you do with that information.
Start talking right now.
Such a good question. High five.
Hey everyone, Steve Adubato with Neal Shapiro, the president and CEO of the WNET Group. Neal, this is the final night of Yankee Week here on One-on-One. And again, check out steveadubato.org if you missed the other ones. We featured an interview with Ian O'Connor, two captains. One is Derek Jeter, the other one is Thurman Munson. This great book by Marty Appel. Two of the greatest captains of all time for the Yankees, Neal?
Absolutely. Not just because I think of how they both performed on the field, but what I think they meant to their team. Munson, obviously, we lost far too soon. I remember his funeral. I remember when the team plays that next night, Bobby Mercer knocks in all the runs, the Yankees dissolving in tears. How much he meant to that team, so integral to their success. And then obviously, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Neal, only because you have, I told folks the first night, I can't find my Derek Jeter cup. Neal has his right there. So everyone, again, it's my favorite cup in the house. I'm upset I don't have it. But Neal, Jeter, a leader on and off the field, quiet leadership. You and I, students of leadership, talk more about Jeter.
They'll tell you in baseball that there's no such thing as clutch plays and clutch hitting, that over time they all do the same. But anybody who followed Derek Jeter knows that's not true. That in great moments, he stepped up. In the World Series, he was great. You can think about the great when he gets 3,000 hits, he goes 5 for 5 and hits a home run on his 3,000th hit. He always felt comfortable in any stage, and he felt comfortable in his own skin, which is pretty amazing where he was. And the fact that he was so into the Yankee lore, he dreamed of being a Yankee as a kid. He was a Yankee. He said, I'm so proud and grateful to be a Yankee. And I think fans realize that, that we're a part of that tradition too. He always thanked the fans and how important that was. I think people felt like we really had a relationship with Derek Jeter. Like he was our captain too. And I think that's part of the reason why he is so beloved to this day.
Thurman
Munson was, I remember being at a Yankee game and they put up a video of him. And I sort of got teared up, and this 12-year-old kid said, do you remember Thurman Munson? And I said, like yesterday. There was something so great about him that not only as a catcher, where he had a couple of great years as MVP and set the tone for reminding people what an offensive force he was, but he was so determined to win. All that mattered was winning. And, whether he would have players crashing him at home plate, he was like a wall. He had a great arm, would throw guys out. But what he cared about was winning. And nothing really else mattered to him. He played through incredible pain, be bruised all season long. But he set an example, right? We're here to do one thing, and that's to win.
A we guy, a team guy. I know it sounds like such a cliche, but Neal understands better than most that was true, not only for Munson, but for Derek Jeter. We start off with the interview with Ian O'Connor, talking about the captain, Derek Jeter, and the other great captain who we lost way too soon, the great Thurman Munson. Neal and I will be on the back end, just thanking everyone for watching us in Yankee Week, and check out two great captains for the Yankees. I was looking at the New York Post, who got the excerpts from the book. And the first thing they play out is the relationship, or lack thereof, relationship between Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez. How much of the book is about that complicated relationship?
I think, Steve, after 2004 and beyond, it's a big part of it. Because, and obviously they did repair the relationship in 2009. As a Yankee fan, all Yankee fans know, just looking at them, their body language when they were together around the dugout, the batting cage, they repaired it and won a championship.
It'd be hard to fake that all that time.
That's right, and they didn't fake it. Actually, what happened there, Steve, in 2009 was after the steroid confessional on Alex's end, he comes back an emasculated figure. And really, Derek Jeter allowed him really to reach out finally to Alex after management had asked him to do that for a number of years. He finally did reach out and try to bring him in from the cold, if you will. And they worked at it. They're never going to be best friends again, but they did have a good functioning working relationship in 2009. It eased the divide in the clubhouse, it eased the tension in the clubhouse, and definitely allowed that team, or helped allow that team to win it all.
Describe from your perspective, I mean, as we do the program, who knows what's going to happen with the Yankees, but as we do the program, Derek Jeter is struggling, let's just say, at the plate, and he struggled last year as well. But you're comparing it against an extraordinary career, extraordinary body of work, the captain, if you will. Describe his personality that we don't see.
He's a very dignified presence, obviously, and I like to say that on or off the field, he probably carries himself as a Yankee better than anyone since Lou Gehrig. If you look at the works on DiMaggio and Mantle over the years and how they're described, the way they treated people, that's not Derek Jeter. He doesn't do that. And his image, the reality of Derek Jeter matches up with the image. I think what he's looking for now is a dignified end to his career, and that's not easy for a superstar athlete who's aging to find. He's a very private guy. He doesn't like to open any public windows on his soul. He actually didn't want me to write this book.
How do you know?
Well, he told me. And when I approached him a couple of years ago about it and said, I want to write, or at least attempt to write, a definitive biography on your career, his first response was, my career's not over. And I explained, well, you know, you're going to be approaching 3,000 hits. No Yankee's ever done that. You are going to be nearing the end of your career, and I'd like to give it a shot. And I promised him at the time, I'm going to run out every ground ball like you do. I'm going to work as hard on this project to get it right as you've ever worked in your life as a Yankee, and I think I honored that pledge.
You know, it's interesting. As I think about Jeter, I think he signs a multi-year deal at this age. How old is he?
He's going to be 37 in June.
And again, you get what you can get. Career is what it is. Obviously, he'll never worry about money. But I often wonder, a guy like Derek Jeter, as smart as he is, as much of a leader as he is, I've heard him say many times he would never want to manage, but he would want to, quote unquote, own a team. Realistic?
I think so. Yeah, I think as I could see him buying into a group. The only thing is, I can't see him owning, Steve, another team. I mean, his whole identity is wrapped around the Yankees, and he knows there's a significant value in being a one uniform icon, like Cal Ripken Jr. That's what he wants to be. But then if he goes off, well, Michael Jordan went and played for the Washington Wizards and was an executive, and it just...
He was a bull.
That's right, he was a bull. If Derek Jeter is going to be an owner or part owner of the Kansas City Royals or the Tampa Rays, it's just not going to feel right. It's not going to look right. So the question is, will the Steinbrenner family ever offer him the option to buy in? I think that's a possibility. I don't know if that's been discussed to date. I do know he's very serious about owning a team, so we'll see how that plays out.
Derek Jeter's never been the greatest athlete. I mean, he's a great athlete, but he's never been the greatest on the team, never been the most talented player. What makes him as great as he is, a first ballot, obviously, Hall of Famer?
I think just the drive. You know, the criticism does motivate him. I don't know if he likes to admit that publicly. The criticism bothers him, and I think he is just a guy driven to succeed. He's built his whole legacy and career around team-centric pursuits. He likes to remind people it's about winning championships. When Alex Rodriguez first came aboard in 2004 in the trade that Derek probably didn't want, he said at that press conference, you know, at the end of the day, we're all judged by the titles we win. At that point, Derek had won 4, Alex 0. But Alex Rodriguez was regarded as the greater physical talent, and still is to this day. I think Derek Jeter is just a guy who grew up driven to succeed, to achieve. He's an achiever in everything he's ever done, in school as well. And I think that's really the core of what he is. He's never disrespected an authority figure in the game. I think he's really about playing the game the right way and honoring the DiMaggio credo of There's always going to be someone in the crowd who's never seen you play that day. So every ground ball you run out and you play as if that person hasn't seen you. And I think that's why, and that's what made him great, that commitment every day to achieve and excel.
It's interesting, you just made reference to that's what made him great. I believe you, that's what makes him great, but go back to what Jeter said, I'm still playing. He signs a multi-year deal. Hypothetical. Mm-hmm. He's batting about 250, 255 right now as we do this show. Say he literally bats 220 and has 8 home runs. Do you think it's in Derek Jeter and has very few extra base hits? And he becomes a liability. Do you see Derek Jeter having it in him, team player, as you said, where he says, I'm not helping enough. No matter whether I have a long-term contract or not, I'm stepping down. Do you see it?
I do. I do, Steve. I think DiMaggio did that at the end of the 51 season when the Yankees did offer him a chance to return, and he said...
He was in the middle of a contract.
Right. I can't play anymore at this level, and at the level that's acceptable to me. And I think Derek Jeter will come to that conclusion and accept it when it happens, when he believes that has happened. And he doesn't believe that that's close yet. At the end of the season, he might have a different viewpoint about it. I suspect he's going to try to play 2-3 more years. I think, to me, the bigger issue is not, and of course there's been a debate in New York about should he be dropped from the top of the order to the bottom. And I think ultimately he'll accept that with the same dignity and grace that Don Mattingly accepted when he was moved out of the 3-hole and for Paul O'Neill, and he said, this should have happened weeks ago. O'Neill's been the best hitter on his team for a while. I think Jeter's going to handle that publicly very well. When they ask him to move from shortstop to a different position, I think that's the day he says, you know what, guys, I'm going to call it a career. I don't think he'll ever move off of shortstop.
Well, he didn't do it for Alex Rodriguez.
They didn't ask him to do it.
They also know, come on, respectfully, that wasn't even in play.
No, it wasn't.
They weren't going to ask
And a lot of people argued, you know, if Rodriguez is the better shortstop,
there's more range. There's more ground to cover, right?
That's right. And he was the better shortstop at that time. They said, our captain, we're not going to diminish him in any way. So we're just not going to ask Derek Jeter to do that. We're going to make A-Rod do it. He's the one who's going to have to make the sacrifice, and that's what happened. But I think that Derek Jeter could accept batting 7th, 8th, or 9th and still being a good, reliable shortstop who gives you all the intangibles of winning. But I don't think he can accept, hey, we need you now to bat 9th and play left field. I don't think he'll do that.
Last question. The relationship between Derek Jeter and the Yankee fans is pretty amazing. You know, our president here at WNET, Neal, Shapiro, goes to a lot of games, loves the Yankees. And we've talked about this a lot. I wonder whether the Yankee fans will ever boo Derek Jeter. Say he goes on an 0-4-25. Just doesn't hit in key positions where the Yankees are in a position to score, and he costs them games. Will the Yankee fans ever boo Derek Jeter?
They have already. In 2004, when he was 0-for-32, they did boo him one night, if not 2. It wasn't long, it wasn't that loud. But
I'll ask it differently. Sustainable booing. Like the kind that we know A-Rod and a lot of other people have experienced. Sustainable booing at Yankee Stadium.
I think only if it gets to a point where they feel, the fans do, they have no choice. They have booed other icons in Yankee Stadium, obviously DiMaggio and Mantle were
definitely.
Booed. Right. So I think yes, but they're not going to go to the ballpark wanting to do it. And I think it's only if his play has degenerated to a point where they are absolutely left with no choice. I think that's the only time and place that Yankee fans will actually boo him consistently until he finally retires.
The writer, the author is Ian O'Connor. The name of the book is The Captain, The Journey of Derek Jeter. It's a terrific book, folks. Go out there and get it. And whether you're a Yankee fan or not, you have to respect the work of Derek Jeter because he's an icon, not just for the Yankees, but for baseball. I said you don't have to be a Yankee fan to appreciate Munson. What was he all about, and why is it so tragic at 32 he died in that plane crash?
He was the first Yankee captain, actually, since Lou Gehrig, who died at age 37. Something about that position, maybe. But Gehrig had died in 41. Joe McCarthy, as manager, said there'll never be another Yankee captain. The position dies now with Lou. And then in the mid-70s, George Steinbrenner said, you know, we should consider having a captain. And I was the only guy in the room that remembered the Joe McCarthy thing. So.
By the way, I did a disservice to you before you go on with your story. Tell folks how you know this stuff.
Right. I was the Yankee PR director all throughout Thurman's career.
1968 you started?
I started in 68, which was the year he was drafted. My first job was answering Mickey Mantle's fan mail. I grew up in the Yankee organization, and now I'm the PR director in my 20s, and I say, you know, Joe McCarthy said the position is retired with Lou Gehrig. And Mr. Steinbrenner, to his everlasting credit, says, well, if Joe McCarthy knew Thurman Munson, he'd know this is the right guy in the right time.
Why was he the right guy to be the captain?
Because he was a leader. If the catcher is kind of a take-charge guy, it's a natural fit. He's facing everybody else. He's kind of commanding the action. He's coddling the pitching staff. And, oh, he was so good with the pitching staff. He really could treat them each psychologically and intellectually, individually. So Munson becomes the captain in '76, wins the MVP award, and leads the Yankees back to the World Series after 12 dismal seasons.
Marty, some of the most powerful aspects of the book about Thurman Munson, and do yourself a favor, go out and get it. The publisher is?
Doubleday.
Doubleday.
Great baseball name, right?
Absolutely, Abner Doubleday. Here we go. His childhood. Forget about on the field right now. His childhood, painful in a lot of ways. What was the deal with Thurman Munson's father?
Well, his father was the product of being raised in an orphanage, and who can attribute what he became to that? But the dysfunctional family goes back at least 2 generations. Thurman was the youngest of 4. The 3 siblings leave home.
What are we looking at there, Marty?
We're looking at Dwayne, his older brother, and Thurman is the younger.
Got it. Sorry.
And there were 2 older sisters as well. And they all leave home as soon as they're finished with high school, leaving Thurman alone in this very challenging environment. It was a loveless home, no support at all his athletic achievements in high school.
His old man wasn't there for him?
Wasn't there for him. He was a long-distance truck driver, gone all week. Then he'd come back Friday night and start walloping the kids for misbehaving.
So the kid's playing great ball. Does he go there and even if he doesn't see the game, does he tell him he's a good ball player?
He doesn't really. He doesn't coddle him. He doesn't compliment him. In fact, he's jealous of him because he thinks he's a better ball player and he's stuck driving a truck all week and should have been.
He was angry at the kid.
He was angry, and it never went away. He was always jealous of Thurman's success.
So it's so crazy here. Thurman Munson has this incredible playing career on the field and is the captain. We'll talk about Reggie Jackson, his fire relationship with Reggie and stuff with Billy Martin. But what strikes me is on August 2nd, 1979, how does Thurman die? And then we'll bring the father back into it.
Thurman had become a great family man in his own right as an adult. Sort of, you know, he was determined he was going to break that cycle.
He was going to be the father he never had.
Exactly. And to accomplish it in part, he learned to fly so that he could go home after ball games to Canton, Ohio, and be with his family.
And Diana was with those kids.
Yes. And people didn't know this. The players are driving home to Bergen County or Westchester County.
He's flying.
And he's flying out of Teterboro to go to Canton. By '79, he's moved up to a jet. It's his 3rd plane. It was too much plane for him. My first reaction back then, I remember, was usually if you get a plane like this, you get a pilot with it.
Right. Not Thurman.
Not Thurman. He did it himself, and he messed up. There were pilot errors, serious pilot error made on that fateful Thursday in August of '79. But his last actions were heroic in a sense because there were 2 passengers with him, friends, pilots themselves. And he took that plane down in a field, and all 3 of them survived that crash landing. And had they not hit a tree stump and caused Thurman's paralysis, they all would have walked away from that plane. But as it happened, the plane burst into flames. The other 2 guys had to flee, leaving Thurman behind. A terrible end for Thurman.
What was the reaction on the part of the Yankee family?
This was as difficult a day as Yankee fans, Yankee management, even media, who we didn't talk to very often. It was as tough a day as baseball history had ever put on a franchise, let alone this hollowed, storied franchise that was they were the defending world champions, and he was the captain. There were 2 games of particular note right after. I mean, there was the Friday night game the next day where people remember misty rain and tears and Reggie Jackson crying in right field, and the empty home plate ceremonially, sort of like the riderless horse at the Kennedy funeral, John Kennedy. And then 3 days later after the funeral, the heroic Bobby Mercer game when he drives in all 5 runs for Thurman.
They were close. They
were close, and Bobby had just rejoined the team after 5 years in exile.
What was happening with the short version, the tension between Reggie Jackson, superstar, comes in, the article in which magazine?
Sport.
I'm the drink, I'm the straw stirs the drink, you know? Here's Thurman Munson, team guy. I don't want to make it overly simplistic, but he was about the team. It was not about stats. He was not about posing after he hit a home run. He was the opposite, right?
Right.
What was the deal between the two of them? Oil and water?
It was a clash of egos, but Thurman's wasn't an ego that he had to stand on the top of a tallest building and say, I'm the greatest.
Right. Reggie wanted the chocolate bar called Reggie. Did Thurman want it?
No, Thurman could care less, but he didn't want to be disrespected.
That's right.
And when Reggie came in and did this, Thurman was the biggest advocate for getting Reggie. He wanted his bat behind him in the lineup. But Reggie comes, and no sooner is he there than in spring training of '79, he does this stupid interview in Sport magazine that says, I'm the straw that stirs the drink.
I'm the guy.
Thurman can only stir it bad. He even goes so far as to name Thurman. So suddenly Thurman's got 23 new best friends because everybody on the team gravitated
Did
towards
Reggie
him.
understand why it was so stupid what he did and how he disrespected Thurman Munson?
He probably did, but the only thing he ever said was he was misquoted and he didn't expect that those statements would be used in the story.
Marty, let me do this because you know the media business better than I do. We never do the proper service to a book like this. The book is called Munson, The Life and Death of a Yankee Captain. Minute left. What's the legacy that Thurman Munson leaves?
He's old school. I mean, it wasn't that many years ago, but yet he played the game hard and true. He respected the game. He didn't talk to the media, but the fans saw around that, and they saw the way he played the game, and they loved him.
We still love him, right?
Yeah, they still love him. His picture goes up on the scoreboard, they go crazy.
They go crazy. I remember the Old Timers Day the other day, recently. Diana Munson, his wife, came out with Bobby Mercer's wife.
Yes.
Threw the first pitch out.
Yeah.
Out of respect, I promised I'd do this. I hate to end on a negative. At his funeral, tragic death, his father. Go ahead.
The father, who the siblings didn't even know if he was dead or alive. He shows up from Arizona at the funeral, goes to the cemetery, walks up to the burial site and says, "You thought you were too big for this world, huh? Well, look who's still standing, you SOB."
It's just one of the many stories in this very powerful book. Do yourself a favor, go out and read it. And Marty, I want to thank you for all that you've done over these years. Neal, I know that's a tragic and very sad ending, listening to Marty Appel. By the way, check out Pinstripe Empire, Marty Appel, forward by Yogi Berra and Bernie Williams. Great book on the history of Yankees. It was sad to listen to that about Thurman Munson's father, but part of who these guys were, their lives.
Think it's a reminder that they're not just baseball players, right? They're human beings, and the more you dig into them, you realize how much their past influenced who they were, and oftentimes the things they had to overcome, whether it shaped them to be great leaders or the ways whether they were supportive parents like Derek Jeter had, or the opposite of what Munson had. And yet, part of what makes this game so interesting is the way in which people come together, and part of what makes baseball fun when it works is to see a team work together and to say, we're going to succeed because we believe in this larger thing. We're going to appreciate each other's talents. I think that's part of what makes baseball so much fun.
The other thing about baseball is Neal's been to the stadium countless times, and he also has taken his sons there. I have forced my sons and our daughter, Olivia, to go as well. Our kids are going to be Yankee fans. Neal, do we make them Yankee fans?
You know what? I remember at one point, my young son, I can't remember how old he was, but I was watching a game. He said, "Dad, can I watch the game with you?" I thought, "Oh my God, this is so great."
He came to you?
Yeah. So, "Can I watch the game with you?" I thought, "Oh my God, this is going to be so great." So I've tried to lead by example. Like everything, you should make your own decisions. But by the way, aren't the Yankees great?
And again, Neal says this all the time in so many conversations we've had, that this is about more than baseball. And again, you don't have to be a Yankee fan to appreciate. And my final question to you, Neal, to tee this up is, Yankee culture, Yankee history is also about our country's history and us as a people. Am I making too much of that?
No, I think in every way from the downsides. We talked about how late they were to get players of color, and the positive ways about what it means about a culture which is about succeeding and about in which you can unify people and bring people together. At a time when, as we record this, our country, I think, has some sharp divisions. There's something great about 50,000 people can be there, and we can be all cheering for one thing. We can get away and say, we can surround one thing that makes us feel like we have something in common. And I think baseball is also that generational link where father can talk to son and talk to their sons and share what they saw. If I have grandsons, I'll be boring them with stories about Derek Jeter, right? But I think that's part of what we hand down.
Yeah. And Neal, I cannot thank you enough for giving us this time all this week on Yankee Week, and also being very engaged and involved in making this happen. Thank you, Neal.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
You got it. For Neal Shapiro, myself, and I keep saying for Yankee fans, it's for fans of baseball, fans of sports, and fans of why sports matter and why the Yankees matter. For Neal, myself, and our entire team, cannot thank you enough for watching us all this week on Yankee Week here on One on One. Go Yankees. There's always next year.
One on One with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together. Kane University, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, Wells Fargo, PSC&G, Johnson & Johnson, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, New Jersey Sharing Network, and by New Jersey's Clean Energy Program. Promotional support provided by NJ.com and by ROINJ.
When the cost of healthcare depends on how many procedures or tests are performed, we end up with more care, not necessarily better care. But when we partner with New Jersey doctors and hospitals to tie what we pay for healthcare to the results doctors and hospitals deliver for our members, we help drive better quality care that lowers costs for patients. Because all of us in healthcare have a responsibility to lower costs so our members have access to the right care at a fair price.